You're watching BBC News. Let's get more now on our main story. Thousands of non-essential shops and retail parks in England have reopened today. That's the first time in almost 3 months. Well, Chris Turner is Chief Executive of British Business Improvement Districts. Chris, good afternoon to you.
Hello there, Simon. Good to see you.
And you. But first of all, what are Business Improvement Districts?
Business Improvement Districts are organisations where in 328 towns and cities across the country, all the businesses come together and pay a levy to pay for increased policing, marketing, security, social media, hanging baskets, Christmas lights. We're a sort of self-help group for towns and cities across the country, and we range from the West End to Wimborne, so across the whole of the 3 countries.
Yeah, I remember the days of hanging baskets and Christmas lights. It's all about social distancing and things now, so how are you adapting to that?
Well, with great care, I have to say. I mean, we've just done a very large research project across the country, and it's very clear there's a huge exuberance to come back into the shops. People have been locked down for 3 months. This has been a terrible, terrible time for us with a lot of tragic deaths. So we need to celebrate the return. Shops have done a huge amount of work over the last long weekend to make sure they've got all the right partitions in place, the signs are there, local authorities and beats have been out there putting things on pavements to make sure that people feel safe and secure and can keep coming back and just reinventing themselves and our towns and cities.
I don't know if you've seen the pictures this morning from Nike in London, but not everybody, it seems, is adhering to this. And I mean, social distancing has gone out the window here.
I think that's probably a problem of that exuberance on the first day, and the fact that the young worry less about it because the death rates, if I'm honest, are far less for the young. But I do think that'll settle down. Most of our shops have got guards outside, most are marshalling it, most will get the hang of it as the next 2 or 3 days slowly evolve, and people will get used to the idea of being more sensible and careful on their high streets.
I know you're doing a lot of research into this, but do you sense that what people want from the high street will change forever as a result of this pandemic?
Absolutely right. I'm not sure what people want from the high street will change, but what the high street can provide will most certainly change. We've seen a move away from retail, a move towards experiential. People want security, they want quality, they want to come in and have a good time. And also, I think a lot of office and administrative workers will be less coming into the town now. So there'll be a lot of change on the high street. We'll need to monitor and measure it over the next year or 2, because it'll be that long, I think, before we get a full sense. But I do think it'll be a return to a slightly different community, a more caring one, a more nurturing one, and a lot higher quality on the street as people come back, I think, having had this 3 months off.
Well, off apart from shopping on the internet, which has obviously had a boom time. But what about that experience of going into high street and trying things on, of rifling through books and things like that? Has that gone forever?
Not forever. I mean, I think that's the bit people want. They want the experience. And I think what will happen is we'll all get used to how our retail will have to become different. People will need to go into bookshops. They'll need to go into shops and try things on, touch materials, touch shoes, play with them, look at them. And I think as we get more experienced about dealing with this virus, we'll work out exactly how we can make that process safer than it is at the moment.
I'm just wondering if you share the view that some, well, I know you don't share this view, but some say this is happening all way too early. We're still in the heat of this pandemic.
I think there is most certainly a sense that different groups of our society will deal with this differently. The old people like myself will be much more careful. We're more worried about viral load. The death rates amongst the young is much lower than it is amongst the old. And therefore, different groups of people will be dealing with this return in a different fashion. I was down at Primark this morning in my town. I mean, there were queues outside. But interestingly, a lot of them were young people, but also a lot of them were mothers taking their kids back to get clothes, to get shoes after 3 months off. And they were, if I'm honest, being extremely sensible. Proper queues, proper order. And that will, I think, be the dominant force in the next few months.
Looking ahead, and everybody uses that word normal, knowing that actually normal is going to be new. What will the new normality be, do you think?
I think broadly there will be a slow reduction in retail on the high street. I think there'll be an increase in people living in their towns. I think there'll be an increase in offices and residential back in the towns. Offices will be smaller, more discreet. I think residences will be greater in number, and I think the whole retail experience will again be smaller. We will not have those mad queues we used to have, and people will be buying in a much more caring and confident fashion. They'll be using their online for some things, because we've got to love online, but we'll be using the proper experiential buying for the things that really need to be used. Restaurants, bars and coffee bars will become more important, and what you call anchors, the libraries and the medical centres, will become more dominant players on the high street again, as they used to be.
I have a different meaning for anchor, but there we go. Chris, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Chris Turner. Good to talk to you.
Absolute pleasure. Good talking to you, Simon.